Welcome everyone to Dr. John Bedker's Leadership Podcast, the podcast focused on leadership. The episode will begin shortly. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the podcast.
Welcome everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Dr. John Bedker Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, John Bedker. Well, today we're going to talk about an exemplary leader. Someone you might not have heard of. A person who, frankly, for me at least, his name is even difficult to pronounce. I'll do my best. But he has been an exemplary leader. His name, Goh Choon Phong. Mr. Goh, as they call him. Mr. Goh Choon Phong is the Chief Executive Officer of Singapore Airlines. Now again, Singapore Airlines might not be a company that we're particularly familiar with. It's not in the United States, but it is part of the Star Alliance, which is to say United Airlines. So, the connection there. Singapore Airlines, talk about that a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the background of Mr. Goh, and then we'll get into an award he recently received for his exemplary leadership. I'd like to stress two sources that went into this podcast. One is a recent interview of Mr. Goh Choon Phong by the National University of Singapore's Business School. Professor Woken Wirtz conducted the interview. It was really well done. I certainly recommend that. And last, I'm going to read some from a citation given by Airline Transport World, one of the leading international airline periodicals in not just the industry, but in the world, for which Mr. Goh recently received the Excellence in Leadership Award. So I'll read a little bit from that and offer some of my thoughts as well. So let me begin first with Singapore Airlines, kind of put everybody on a similar baseline about who they are and what they're about. Widely known as one of the best, one of the most highest quality carriers in the world. It has been for a very long time. As I mentioned, they're part of the Star Alliance. That's that 5-star organization. It's ranked by Skytrax. That's one of the significant, I'll say, rating agencies, as having 5 stars. And to that end, they have actually been awarded the Best Airline of the Year by Skytrax 5 different times. What's their stock and trade? It covers the gamut of aviation, but they're particularly known for their long-haul carrier work and certainly their long-haul service. Singapore Airlines was the first to put the large Airbus A380. Now that's the airplane, that looks like a double-decker, two stories. It's the world's largest passenger aircraft. They also use the 787, that's the Boeing Dreamliner-10. They're the first airline to put that into service, and they're the only airline that uses the ultra long-range version, very long range, of the Airbus A350. That's the 900 series. It ranks among the top 15 carriers worldwide in terms of revenue miles, and it's the 10th in the world for carrying international passengers. So Singapore Airlines is quite a large, substantial, and high-quality carrier. What do we know about their performance? Let's talk about that. Analytics, data. I always like that. So let's talk about their current numbers. 2024 revenue up for the year. They're at approximately $19 billion in 2024, giving them an operating income of $2.72 billion, which equates then to a net income in 2024 of $2.69 billion. Wow. Highly profitable international carrier. They're obviously based in Singapore, but you can see are a significant player globally. All right, that's a little background on Singapore. Large airline, significant airline, highly awarded airline, known for long-haul service, known for quality. Let's do a quick background on Mr. Goh. Interesting things we learned from a leadership perspective about him just in getting this background. One, he started at Singapore in 1990. Has risen through the ranks at Singapore, held a number of positions, both in Singapore and overseas. Well, he assumed the post of CEO on the 1st of January in 2011. Think about that. Long-term employee, grown through the ranks, number of positions, both home and abroad. 1990 to 2011, new employee to CEO. He's also on the board of directors of Singapore as well. What about his training knowledge? Those things that provided the baseline. What's that about? Also, I think, quite interesting. In the U.S., I'll just focus on that. Mr. Goh holds a Master of Science degree in Computer Science and Electrical Engineering. And ready for this? He also has 3 Bachelor of Science degrees in Computer Science and Engineering, in Management Science, and Cognitive Science. I find that very interesting. Where did he go? All of these degrees are from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. So Mr. Goh is a very bright, very well-educated man who has incredible training and incredible knowledge. He began his time in 1990 at Singapore and today is the airline's CEO. Okay, so let's go to this award because in so doing, we're going to talk about a number of things that leaders should be mindful of and which you can hopefully try to replicate. So here we go. This is from Air Transport World. This is the airline industry, one of the leading publications, gave out their 2024 Achievement Awards. And the Excellence in Leadership Award went to Mr. Goh Choon Phong. All right, I'll just read a few excerpts. As I mentioned earlier, he joined the SIA board, that's the Singapore International Airline Board, in October of 2010, assumed the role of CEO in January of 2011. He also serves on the board of the SIA Engineering Company and is the chairman of Budget Aviation Holdings, which oversees Singapore's low-cost subsidiary, Scoot. He's a member of the Association of Asia Pacific Airline Executive Committee and a former chairman of the International Air Transport Association Board of Governors, IATA. Mr. Goh continuously strives, this is what the citation for his awards states, continuously strives to achieve the best and to assure Singapore maintains its famous world-class standards. Let's talk about that for just a little bit, and I'll go to the interview by Professor Wirtz at the National University of Singapore's Business School. He really highlights Mr. Goh's focus on people. And how does Mr. Goh respond? He says, what we need to have is a warmth. I think that word's particularly important. A warmth to passengers. So think about that in your leadership journeys. The actual sense of warmth. I mean, it's not just, well, I should care, I should try, but a genuineness and authenticity about this feeling of warmth. Well, how would you go about doing that? By having the focus not only on your employees, your people, but for him it means a universal statement on the customer. Focus on the customer. he makes it crystal clear that Singapore Airlines is a passenger, which is to say customer-centric organization. That is the center of the target. Not profits, not earnings per share, not stock price. He is absolutely crystal clear about this important leadership component that we all need to be mindful of, is that keeping our eye, keeping our mind on processes rather than outcomes. Being process-driven rather than outcome-based. That is the key to success and the key to profitability. So, if we're going to focus on the customer from an airline's point of view, what do you do? Well, he's quite proud of these leading ideas. Full, flat business class on all routes. Now, many of us that travel in the United States think about that. Full, flat business class seats on all routes. At Singapore, that includes even the short haul routes. Routes that might have, for instance, a Boeing 737. That's passenger centric because he knows that that customer satisfaction, that customer experience, what he calls warmth to passengers, is in fact critical to the success of the enterprise. It is the process that leads to the outcome. All right. So there we have a little bit from the citation, a little bit of my comments about the importance of his approach. What about a person that started in 1990, took over in 2011, but we know things happened in the industry. Huge things happened. A pandemic happened. Airline traffic literally was shut down. Well, then, how did that occur? How did he deal with that? How did he manage that? More importantly, how did he lead that? And what has happened since as a consequence of his leadership? So, what Mr. Goh did is he implemented and oversaw strategic changes to the airline that led to its transformation. He led them. Significant change was his decision to merge the company's 4 airline brands, 2 full-service carriers, Singapore Airlines, of course, and Silk Air, and the 2 low-cost carriers, Scoot Air and Tiger Air. He merged these into 2 distinct brands, Singapore and Scoot. That simplification of structure contributed to record-breaking financial performances and better customer service, with new products tailored to each. And I mentioned some of these to you already. So, leading through this pandemic, huge challenge, out of which the airline was one of the fastest in Asia to recover, and from which Singapore emerged even stronger than the pre-pandemic times. Mr. Goh was quick to realize the priorities when the crisis struck. One of the first to go to the markets to raise additional liquidity. What did he do? How did he do it? Right? Innovation, strategy, process-driven to make an incredible outcome. Well, he went to the marketplace, a place unfamiliar to Singapore because they have been a very profitable carrier and therefore weren't going to the markets regularly for money. They have money and had money. But now, in a pandemic, the world changed. He came up with the idea of a rights offering. He went to the parent, who absolutely supported this idea and him, and he went to the shareholders, who similarly did the same. Well, this rights offering, it turns out, was actually oversubscribed. It was a $3 rights offering. Today, that rights offering is valued at $6, double. What did Singapore do to those people that supported the airline in this time of need? Mr. Goh initiated a dividend, today paying 6%. He reviewed all Singapore's enterprises end to end, ensuring that his people were ready for the opportunities when the crisis passed and the business of flying people could return. He knew that there would be a pent-up demand for air travel. In one, he wanted his people ready, he wanted his airlines ready, and he wanted to be first to return to the marketplace. Folks, that's leadership. He always had faith in the pent-up demand and spent the time of the pandemic planning for recovery. Initially, by raising capital to make sure they had the liquidity to continue, and then being first to serve the needs of people, the pent-up demand to travel. He's been a long time advocate for the industry as a whole. He's received numerous awards over the years. Let me just highlight a few. The CAPA Asia Pacific Airlines CEO of the Year, U.S. Business Council's Dwight D. Eisenhower Global Innovation Award. Here's something from a leadership point of view that really stood out to me as I did the research for this podcast. Mr. Goh is often described as humble. He's the first to accredit the achievements of Singapore to its people and to say how proud he is to lead them. Folks, there's a leadership message for all of our leadership journeys. And so, Goh Choon Phong is the recipient of the 2024 Airline Transport World Excellence in Leadership Award. Let me talk about, in closing, some leadership ideas that he shared in the interview with Professor Wirtz. He says, keep it simple. I like that. I think that's an important leadership message, folks. From pandemic to recovery, he had 3 goals. Not 5, not 10, not 20, 3 goals. He says, but we need to do these. We need to do them well. We need to do them excellently, which leads to the very first goal. Service excellence. Not okay, not all right, not that which might be most profitable. Service excellence. Second, product leadership. Talked about full flat seats in business class on all segments. Holy cow. And network ease. His alliances, India, Tata, has now enabled them into the fastest growing market in the world, India. Their recovery, their purchase of equipment, their focus on 3 components. 3 components of leadership. Deliver excellent service, to be a product leader, and to provide ease of people to travel on the Singapore network. So there's some important messages for all of us. I know your business may be different, but think about this as a context. I've done recent podcasts about Boeing. Now, Boeing is a place that delivers airplanes. Well, what if you're an airline? You're the end user, but yet you're having delivery delays. I've highlighted this in a previous podcast about Boeing. Well, you plan that schedule with the anticipation of having an airplane. that can meet the schedule that you're proposing. The people that are buying tickets expect that. Well, going back to Mr. Goh, service excellence. Well, if you don't have a plane to fly the people on the trip that they want and may need to be on, that is not service excellence. So Mr. Goh has to deal with the realities of these supply chain issues, in this case from Boeing, who may or may not be able to deliver an aircraft in a timely manner. So what does he do? He operates proactively and process-driven to ensure that the outcome for the passenger, for the people that they serve, will still be met. And when they do get on that plane, that the product that they experience is of the highest quality, that Singapore is the product leader. And they do that, thirdly, again, by creating network ease. So, here we have a story of an exemplary leader, a person who's been at Singapore Airlines a long, long time, who has risen through the ranks, highly trained, highly educated, who says, I have 3 jobs, 3 tasks, and I intend to do them with excellence. And for that, Mr. Goh Choon Phong is an exemplary leader. All right, everyone, thank you. I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Dr. John Bedker's Leadership Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please tell your friends, and, of course, please follow our podcast and subscribe. Thank you again for tuning in.